I don't get why he keeps attacking us.
Yeah.
And
he could just not mention you, but he insists on throwing you under the bus every chance he gets.
Which is an establishment move.
Yeah.
That's an establishment move.
Yeah.
He's actually, when I was in prison, he done more to attack me and discredit me being able to get out than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if maybe Nigel, I've never met him. Maybe he's bought into the media portrayal. He says the media are wrong about him.
Mm-hmm.
He should know they lie. Maybe he's bought into it. I still see him sitting there on ITV News, so I don't think he gets it.
You know what's odd to me is he was asked a couple of times about one of his financiers who had a conviction, a guy named George Cottrell. And there was another former member of Parliament, I believe, who had a conviction.
No, not former member. One of his sitting MPs volleyed a woman in the head and went to jail.
Times today is carrying a story about one of your aides and colleagues, George Cottrell, who has a conviction for wire fraud in the America and has been named in another criminal investigation in Montenegro. Do you want him by your side on the campaign trail?
I firstly always stand by my friends. And secondly, there is a thing called Christian forgiveness. If people get convicted of something or do something wrong, well, they have another chance in life to go on and prove themselves.
Mr. Farage, thank you.
If in a country that believes in Christian forgiveness, he is not a good example to young tearaways, I don't know what is. Do you believe in Christian forgiveness?
Everyone believes in redemption. Everyone should have second chances.
Is he not a very good example?
Nigel, that is not the question I'm asking.
Would you accept Robinson as a member of your party? UKIP over association with him last time.
Robinson has been to prison many, many times for many, many things. Mortgage fraud, passport problems, you name it. He's got his own campaign. We're a political party aiming to win the next general election. He's not what we need.
Okay, so he was asked about both of those folks, and his response was, from when the newscaster asked him, does he still support them? His response was, they both deserve Christian forgiveness. Don't they deserve Christian forgiveness? But when it comes to Tommy Robinson, you ask him to say, what doesn't Tommy Robinson deserve Christian forgiveness?
He lists my criminal record, which is ridiculous. Yeah. Pathetic little lawfare stuff.
It was a damning remark, delivered with the bitter clarity of a man who hasn't forgotten. When I was in prison, said Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage did more to attack me and discredit me getting out than anyone else. In just one sentence, Robinson, a lightning rod for Britain's populist right, pulled back the curtain on a relationship that many on the fringes had long suspected was poisoned by opportunism and betrayal. And for those who followed Nigel Farage's carefully curated political trajectory, from beer-swilling man of the people to mainstream media darling, the accusation rang disturbingly true. Farage and Robinson were never ideological twins, but for a time they existed in a shared political ecosystem, a sphere of anti-establishment rhetoric, Brexit-driven nationalism, and performative outrage about immigration and political correctness. But when the stakes rose, when Robinson faced prison time and the populist movement splintered under pressure, Farage didn't just back away. According to Robinson and his supporters, he drove the knife in. Farage took to the airwaves while Robinson was behind bars, casting aspersions on his character, dismissing him as a liability, and all but disowning him in the eyes of a public still divided on whether Robinson was a martyr for free speech or a dangerous provocateur. In doing so, Farage aligned himself more closely with the conservative establishment and distanced himself from the volatile energies that made Brexit possible in the first place. Farage has always fancied himself a political insurgent, but the Robinson episode exposed what many critics believe to be his true nature. An opportunist who is more than willing to throw allies under the bus to maintain media respectability. At the height of the Brexit wars, when Farage was angling for political relevance beyond UKIP and eyeing TV deals, Robinson had become too hot to handle, so Farage washed his hands. To many, this wasn't just cowardice, it was betrayal. Robinson was imprisoned in part for filming outside a courthouse during a grooming gang trial, a move that his supporters framed as free speech, and his critics condemned as contempt of court. But regardless of one's view on Robinson's methods, The image of a former UKIP leader publicly discrediting a man from his own political orbit, while he was behind bars, struck many as self-serving and cold. In many ways, the Farage-Robinson rupture is emblematic of a broader trend in global right-wing populism. Firebrands like Farage are happy to surf the wave of discontent, but only up to the point where it threatens to damage their own reputations. They leverage the fury of figures like Robinson when it's convenient and abandon them when the media spotlight gets too hot. Farage's defenders argue that he was simply being pragmatic. Robinson, they claim, is too extreme, too volatile. Too much of a liability for any serious political movement. But that defense collapses under the weight of Farage's own history. This is, after all, a man who stood in front of anti-migrant billboards, who courted controversy as a branding tool, and who once declared that he'd feel concerned if Romanians moved in next door. For him to now clutch his pearls and recoil from Robinson reeks of hypocrisy.
Across, how about 10.5 miles? You're half of the channel. That's not the point. So apparently Yvette Cooper is extending their contract and is prepared to give them more money to get their feet wet. I mean, what on earth is going on here?
Right, so I love the French. I adore the French, but the French are the French, okay? And the only thing that they're going to respond to is what you call a diplomatic incident, right? So actually what we need to do when the French are failing to do as promised, when we've given them all this money, is when a boat is leaving and gets to that halfway point, we either need to blockade it and make sure it stays in French waters and phone up the French Coast Guard and say, unfortunately, this boat is not going to be able to traverse into the UK side of the channel, so you've got to come and rescue it. Or else we drag the boat back to France ourselves. Because the way that they responded to negotiating fishing quotas was a diplomatic incident. You had French fishermen opening up their sort of water guns on UK fishermen saying, we want to fish here, we want these scallops, we want these whelks, you can't get whelks on this side of the channel. The French are, well, they have that Gallic esprit de corps. And so, you know, we can give them more money and we can carry on like mad people, watching them not actually use it to do what we've asked them to do. Or we can say, hold on, we've given you almost £1 billion, which actually by now, if it's 800,000 pounds, is going to be €1 billion. Let's translate it into
800 million. Don't undersell yourself.
That's probably going to be €1 billion. That's what I'm saying at this point. That rounds up, right, in euro language. So let's speak their world and use, you know, meters and centimeters, not miles and yards. Maybe they're missing something in the translation of the diplomatic text. What we need to do is signal to the French now, very audaciously and very deliberately provocatively, you're not doing what you've asked to do. So we either stop a boat midway and phone the French lifeguard and say, this boat's here, it's your side of the channel, pick it up, pick it up, or we have to start taking boats back because they're not responding. And sometimes you need to be...
More than 400 illegal migrants landed in the UK yesterday on 6 small boats, while French police reportedly stood by and did nothing. The crossing has sparked outrage, especially as Home Secretary Yvette Cooper just extended a multi-million-pound deal to fund French enforcement. Critics say British taxpayers are footing the bill for French inaction. We're paying them to watch migrants launch boats, one MP fumed. This is insanity. Under the current agreement, the UK has spent over £480 million since 2020 to help France stop the crossing. But with record arrivals continuing, many are calling the deal a total failure. Cooper defended the agreement as long-term strategy, but offered no explanation for the lack of French intervention. Meanwhile, pressure is mounting in Parliament for tougher unilateral action. As one local in Dover put it, we're paying France to do nothing, and we're the ones left dealing with the crisis.